Hi guys, it's Ben from Simplified Fitness Business. And look, it's one thing to have successful programs or a success for a few months. It's another thing to have a strategic success plan that's going to last a long time. So look, I think it's super important to have a way to grow your business and to have some key fundamentals in place that ensure you'll not only be successful short-term, but long-term. And you'll even see that successful strategic growth of your business as well. So today we're going to look at 5 ways that I find have really helped grow our business from small with 1 or 2 staff members right up to where we are now with like 15 full-time staff members and a huge amount of growth year after year. All right, Ben from Simplified Fitness Business, and let's get into it. Had me coffee, ready to go. And today we're going to look at top 5 ways that I've used to strategically grow our business. And look, I think the success that we have in business ebbs and flows. We have good months and bad months, and we have some really bad months, and we have some really good months, and we have some months that are so-so, and we have some months where we don't really know what's going on. But I think the key is having a long-term strategy that's actually going to work. And if you don't have some tenets in place to control that and to base that on, then you really don't have any way of gauging whether or not you're actually going to be successful long-term. As I said, you're going to have up months and you're going to have down months. So it's important to have something that stands above that so that you can see if you're truly being successful and moving forward, even when you're having a bad months. Look, for me, it all started about 6 years ago. I took a trip to New Zealand. And at that point, I was running my business. Things were going quite well. I took a holiday, so I thought it was going excellent. And people had talked to me lots of different times about different aspects of the business. And at that point, I was like, yeah, we need all that. But anyway, we took a trip to New Zealand and we went snowboarding, and me and my brother, and we went down to Wanaka. And if you haven't been there, it's awesome. Beautiful place, just outside of Queenstown, I think. And we went to, they got this maze, massive big puzzle world thing there. And it was like a huge big hedge maze, but big enough that it covered like half a football field. It had like bridges through the middle and tunnels, and in each of the 4 corners you had a big tower. And the goal of it was to get to each of the towers and then get back out. That was the challenge they set everyone. And the goal was to do it in under 2 hours. That's how big this thing was. And my little brother just randomly went in and, as always, was pretty successful. He got straight to the first tower really quickly. I'm like, how the hell did he get up there? Eventually, I got up to the first tower and I thought, I'm going to be strategic about this. I'm going to look out over the window and I'm going to look at all of the paths, and I mapped out the path from up in the tower, and it didn't take me long to figure out how to get to the exit and the next tower and map it all out. It took me about 5 minutes to map it all out visually and go, cool, I'll do that. Yep, that's perfect. I'll remember that. Now, I think you already know how this story went. From up there, my vantage point, I could see everything. It was great. But once I got back into the maze, it was about 3 turns in and I went, ooh, did I remember correctly? Started second guessing myself, taking different turns. And it wasn't long before I was completely lost. I abandoned all hope of the plan and then just went back to doing what I was doing, which was just taking it turn by turn. And it was just sort of like a moment of reflection there that it wasn't really anything about that experience that really triggered this, but just thinking on it, at that point, I'd been looking at different business models and different business coaching, and I was like, do I really need it? And it sort of just clicked there and then that, just like in the maze, when I was in day-to-day, I didn't really have that perspective of looking down and seeing what was going on. I was just sort of feeling it as I went. But when I was up on the tower, I could see what was happening. I could see the way out, and I could clearly see the image of how to get out. And when I looked at the way I was running my business, that was the same for me. At times when I was focusing on the business, looking down on the big picture, the path forward was fairly clear. Fair enough, I couldn't see everything, but I had a fairly good idea of what to do and where to go. But every time I got day to day, I found that I was just lost. Like, you get to the end of the day and you go, where did the hours go? You get to the end of the week and go, where did the week go? You get to the end of the month and you're like, where did the money go? And so that sort of was one of the things that triggered me to finally get some help and ask for help. And I guess once I stepped into that, everything sort of flowed from there. Yeah, fair enough. The first couple of attempts at finding help didn't go so well, but once I committed to finding help, it was only a matter of time before I found the right person that resonated with me and got help. But so, I mean, for me, that all started it all. And the first tip I would give anyone is know when to ask for help. And if you're already knee deep or waist deep or neck deep in it, you're well past the time when you should have asked for help. But there's a huge difference between asking for help and asking for advice. And advice, it's not the difference in the information you get. Typically, if you ask an intelligent person or a smart person for advice or help, they're going to give you roughly the same answer. But when you're asking for advice, you're asking for an opinion that you may or may not take. Think about any time you've asked someone for advice or someone's given you advice. You sort of, maybe you take it, maybe you don't. You sort of weigh it up and maybe it's okay. But when you ask for help, it's normally when you're dire straits. It's when you're stuck and you're like, all right, I need help. And at that point, there's a different thing that happens in the mind, and you are now far more open to trying something that you may not have tried before. When you get advice and you hear something you don't really want to hear, look, you probably know it's right in some way, but you might try it a little bit, but it's half-assed, and you don't really put that much into it. I know I don't. But when I ask for help, it's normally when I go, okay, I'm going to have to try some stuff that I don't like, and yet that mindset is different. So I think that the biggest key to scaling my business for me has been knowing when to ask for help. And as I've scaled more and more and more, it's actually, you think as you get busier and busier and busier and bigger and bigger and bigger, you'll need less and less help. But it's actually the opposite. The bigger I got, the more I was willing and wanted to ask for help, because that growth was exciting, exhilarating. And so I went, well, if a little bit of help got me this much growth, then asking for help more often and taking on more help from more people might give me better growth. Mostly that worked, but what I found was I had to find the right people for the right help. Not everyone can help with everything. Yeah, there's no such thing as a jack of all trade when it comes to business advice. So find the people that work for you. But being able to ask for help was a huge mindset change for me. And when I got to the point where I could ask someone for help, I found that the information they gave me would sink in and stay in. And when I tried it, I didn't necessarily think it was always going to work, but I was willing to try it and evaluate the results for what they really were, rather than my pre-absorbed or predefined opinion on what might happen. So number one tip, ask for help. Know when to ask for help. And chances are, if you're at the point where you think you might need help, you're already past the point where you did need help. So ask for help. It's a mindset change, but give it a try. If you're going up to someone saying, look, can I get your advice? You're not in the right mindset. Take a step back, have a think and go, look, what's the worst that can happen? If you're in trouble now and you ask for help and you try something new, what you were already doing isn't helping. We know that because that's why you're in the point where you are now anyway. Ask for help, try the new thing. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work either. Now you know two things that don't work. Try something else, ask someone else for help. Yeah, but ask for help. Cool. Number two is do the work. How many ebooks have you downloaded this week alone, this month alone, this year? I have an entire folder full of ebooks and free downloads that I have downloaded. Chances are you've already downloaded one of mine. It's sitting in a folder somewhere. Maybe you read it, maybe you didn't. I've got a folder, I mean a folder full of things that I have downloaded that were going to help my business. These are me asking for advice. I was looking for free downloads and free help and free magic pills that were going to fix my business. That I never actually did any of them. And when I look back at some of the help that I actually got and put in place, I'd probably got that 10 or 15 times in other areas before, but I'd never really done the work. But this one for me was a big one. I was getting some quite intense business coaching and business development that I was doing. And at one point I found myself going over the same stuff and I felt like I was in a bit of a loop. I'd learned all this really good stuff, and every time I learned the information, I went, yeah, that's exactly what we need. And I couldn't wait to learn the next thing. And so I'd go and learn the next thing. Yeah, this is what I need too. And everything I learned was exactly what I needed. And so was the next thing. So was the next thing. Before you know it, 12 months had gone past and I'd learned so many things that were exactly what I needed. But I actually got asked by one of my best mates, and he said, look, mate, and how has it helped your business? I went, oh, look, and I actually just stopped and realized that all of the help the business that I thought I'd had was all theoretical. I hadn't actually done any of the work. I hadn't actually done or put any of these things into place. And if I had, they were really weak. They weren't really solid. So basically what was said to me was essentially sometimes you've got to stop learning and just do the work. Once you've learned how to do something, you've got to go and practice a skill. So if you go and do a course on weightlifting or Olympic lifting, you've then got to go and do the work to learn how to Olympic lift. If you go and do a diet education program and you become a nutritionalist, you've then got to go and work with clients to learn the skill set. So it's no different with your business. Once you learn how to do one thing, go and do the work. If you've learned a volume of things, then you need to stop learning things and start going and doing things. That's what I found was the biggest help for me. Was when I stopped learning. Coaching was invaluable for me. It helped grow my business, but it only helped grow my business when I stopped the learning phase and started the doing phase. When I started putting all of the things I'd learned into action. I got most of them wrong, but then I learned and improved and evolved them into things that actually worked for me long term. So do the work. Man, if you do nothing else besides do the work, everything works. Put it this way, if you've got a bit of advice or a bit of help or a program or a plan or an idea that even half works and you do the work, that will be far more successful than learning how to do it perfectly and never actually putting it in place. A plan that's a half successful plan done really well is far more advantageous and far more successful than a perfect plan that's not really done. So you've got some help, you've done the work. Next one, you've got to know your numbers. This one's a big one. We all avoid it. Every PT says they know the numbers, but let's be honest, if you're a PT or a fitness trainer, you probably didn't get into this industry because you love numbers and love math. Let's be honest, yeah. I come from a boxing background, I had to count to 4. That's as far as I had to get. As far as the coach was concerned, if you couldn't knock them out in 4 punches, you weren't doing your job. Go back and start again. So numbers weren't ever my good thing. And I was pretty good at maths in school, but numbers like accounting and things like that just weren't interesting to me. It's why I got into this industry in the first place, because I loved being active, being physical. But I had to learn my numbers. You don't have to make it complex though. It doesn't have to be difficult. Get some really simple metrics. Like if you look at 4 phases, the attraction, the conversion, the delivery, and the collection. Attraction, how many leads have you got coming in and how many people have you signed up this month? There's 2 numbers that you should know all the time. Conversion, well, that's really how many people have you signed up for. But if you're doing casual members and you've got program members or memberships, then you want to know how many people are members versus how many people are casuals. Casuals don't pay the bills. If you're a fitness business and you're working on a subscription model or a program model, then you've got to know how many people are in those programs. How many people are invested in your business? You should know that number. Number 2, delivery. If you've made promises, how many of your clients are getting what you promised? Should be some measurable there. If you're really not sure with deliverables, fitness assessments are really an easy way to do deliverables anyway. If you're delivering on your promise to help someone get fitter and you're measuring their fitness and they're improving their fitness, then you're doing something right. Not a great measurement, albeit, because it doesn't really tell you what you're doing right, but at least it means you're moving forward. Start there. Invest it. So if you promise to deliver nutrition, you promise to deliver a goodie bag, and you promise to deliver X amount of sessions a week, track those things. Has everyone got their goodie bag? Has everyone had nutrition delivered? And has everyone actually shown up to their sessions? Some really simple numbers on that delivery. And collection, seriously, how many clients have you got? How much should they be paying? You should know how much revenue in memberships or fees that are due to you are supposed to be coming in each week versus the number that's actually coming in each week. Let's be honest, direct debit's what most of us use, and look, they fail from time to time, in some areas more than others, but you should know that number. And if you have nothing else besides those numbers, realistically, any business really only needs, and we only have these, we have 5 to 7 key metrics for the entire business. That's all we have. You don't need to have a million numbers. Like things like P&Ls and account balances and ledgers and stuff like these are fantastic, but they're things for your accountant. If you love accountancy and you want to learn that, great, know those numbers. But for me, it was just all too much. I get really overwhelmed when I have to go into depth with all that sort of stuff. So I pay my accountant. I go, what's the amount? When I went to him, I said, look, what's the amount of money I have to pay you to do 0 things with my accounting? And he goes, this is the number. And I went, let's pay that number. That's a fantastic number. As long as the number of things I have to do in the accounting world is 0, I'm super happy with that because it's not my strong suit. Anything that's a problem, I hand to him. He fixes it. I pay him to do so. Well worth the investment. But as far as the business itself, we're not talking about those accounting numbers here. We're talking about the day-to-day, the heart of the business, the things that really show you not how successful you are, but how successful you are currently compared to last week, last month, or last year. Should be able to see that flow, that change. If your lead numbers are coming down and you know your revenue is lower, you need lead numbers up. If your lead numbers are up, but your conversion numbers are down, then you know you need to work on your sales process. If your sales are up and your leads are up, but your deliverables are down, you need to work on your in-house team. And if you know your cash collected or your collection is down on the number of members you've got, then you know there's a problem there with either your billing system or the happiness of your clients. If they're not sticking around, then they're not paying their bills. So if you know some basic numbers about your business, more importantly, it's not about knowing the numbers and being a nerd, it's about knowing where things are going wrong. At the end of the week, most of us in the fitness industry look at our bank account and go, where did all the money go? I've got all these clients, I've done all this work, all these hours, and my bank account does not make me happy. It does not look as well as I hoped it would look. But if you know your basic numbers, you know some key metrics of your business, if you don't know what they are, just look at some really, really basic ones. Start with the number of leads you get on a monthly basis versus the number of clients you have on a monthly basis versus the number of money coming in on a monthly basis or weekly basis, whatever works for you. But there's some really, really simple ones. If you're not tracking those, you should start today. It's not hard. Google Sheet. Every week, once a week, sit down, update it. There's much, much easier ways to do it with automation, but if you're new to this, just start with a Google Sheet. It's really easy. If you've got an admin or a VA or someone helping you out, that should be their job. Every week they report the numbers so you can just look at them. Hell, if you don't like computers, just have your admin or whoever's doing that work for you every week, print them out and stick them on your computer monitor or stick them on your desk, or just mail them to you if they have to. Whatever you need to do, you need to know those numbers. Hell, if you've got a whiteboard in your office, just have them updated on your office every week. That's really simple to do. But know your numbers, because if you know your numbers and things aren't going the way they're supposed to go or you want them to go or you feel they should be going, you can see where the gaps are and you can see where the weak spots are. If you know where the weak spots are, you know what to fix next. Cool. There's actually a really cool book, Mike Michalowicz, Fix This Next. It's a really cool book on exactly what we're talking about right now. If you haven't read it yet, go out and read it. It's a really good, it actually really helped me refining this for me and really simplifying it because I found it was really simple. I'm going to do a podcast on this specifically about these numbers later on too, so keep an eye out for that. If you're not in the Facebook group, jump in the Facebook group because you'll see when that pops up, yeah? Number 4, make a profit. But not just make profit a habit. One of the key fundamentals I ever learned with the success of my business is, well, what are we going to business for? It's not to be a non-for-profit. It's not to be a donation or a charity. It's to make a profit. At the end of the day, if you're not making a profit, your business is not moving forward. If you didn't want to make a profit, you should just get a job because that's just a wage. And if that's all you want, that's all you want. But make profit your habit. And what that means is everyone goes, oh, but I'm not successful enough. When the business is going better, I'll make a profit. And I say, well, we're probably thinking about this backwards. I know I was. I used to always think week to week, I've paid all my bills, I've just got enough money for wages, but I wasn't paying myself. I didn't count myself in the wages. I said, oh, I'll make an income later on when the business is successful. That's my sacrifice. I make my sacrifice now so that later on I'll be successful. But after 7 years, I still wasn't getting a wage. And if I was, it was very, very haphazard. It wasn't a regular wage, and it definitely wasn't what I wanted to be paid. And it definitely wasn't what I was owed for the effort I'd put in over the last 7 years. So it wasn't until I went through a process of changing the way I structured the profit of my business. And what I started doing was, rather than paying all my bills and seeing what was left over, I simply started every week putting aside 2% of my income for the week. I didn't touch it all week. And at the end of each week, I put aside 2%. You start with 1% if you have to, of the money as in a profit account. I put that aside and that was my profit. It was just in a separate account. If I ever needed it, it was right there. I figured I'll try this out for 6 months and see what happens. So I put that money aside. Then I put the wages aside for me. I started with a really low wage, basic minimum wage. Actually, if you counted the hours I was doing it, probably way less than that, but that's like most of us. I wanted to start with something regular, so I started really, really low. And then I put aside my tax, because if you don't pay your tax, well, you go to jail and it won't be a problem anymore after that. Then I put aside wages that I had to pay. And then I went, well, what's left over is my bills. And if I don't have enough money for my bills, well, then I have too many bills. I have to get rid of some. When I went through my billing account and looked at all the things I was paying bills on, there was at least 5 or 6 softwares that I wasn't even using. There were things that I'd paid for that started the subscription to that I'd forgotten about because they're only small amounts. I thought, I'm going to use that later on. They'll be really helpful later on. But when it turned out, I didn't use them and they weren't very helpful at all. I wasn't using them. So when I went through my bank account and cleaned out all of the stuff that I was paying for that I just didn't need or wasn't using, when I went through all of my softwares and my automations and the things that I'd done as part of my regular day-to-day process and tidied them up and got rid of all of the stuff that was unnecessary, I found that I dropped by about 30% of the things that I thought I needed. And that translated to a 30% drop in my bills as well. So putting aside the profit first, then putting aside some wages for me, then putting aside my tax, I had to adjust my wages. I had a few too many staff members at that point, and that was no good. So unfortunately, that had to be rectified. And then fixing my bills, I actually got back to a point where we were almost on point there. But more importantly, because I was putting aside the amount of money each week that we were making, and we were putting aside a small amount of profit, my business was now actually in profit for the first time forever. And I was receiving a regular wage for the first time ever. But by going through this process, I no longer had to worry about whether or not we had enough money each week. And look, there was times when I went, wow, we're not earning enough money. We need to bring up the revenue. And that's definitely something I had to work on. By putting aside the bills last instead of first, it forced me to have to reconcile and get rid of all the stuff I didn't need. And so by making profit a habit, the business turned itself around. It actually only took 3 months to prove this system worked. And then I've been using it ever since. So by making profit a habit, I actually made success for my business a habit. And from this point forth, I haven't looked back. It's been great. Yet there's still times when we have to look at our revenue and go, wow, our revenue's a bit low and we still have to cut maybe either wages, or we have to cut bills, or we have to increase our marketing because our lead flow is too low. If I know the overall revenue is too low and I can see my leads are also low, I need to put my leads up. So I need to do something about that. If I know my leads are up and my marketing's low, because I know my numbers, I can go and, well, I need to fix my conversion rate. Things like that. You can really easily look at that. But by putting profit first and making it a habit, the business quickly turned around. That was a really quick win for me, which was great. 3 months it took, which is fantastic. I'm not saying it'll work that quick for you, but definitely try it. If you're not putting any profit aside, and how many times you go to your tax agent and they say, you really have to start paying yourself, or you really have to start making some money soon. Like, that's something that, how many times have you sat there at the end of the month and looked at your bills and gone, we can't pay wages, or we don't have enough for rent? Like, that's not something you want to experience long term. Yeah, sure, short term at the start, that might be a thing, but long term shouldn't be a thing. Put profit first, then you second, and then everything else last. Cool. So once you're through all that, the last thing is to create some space. But create space for you. Space for you to think. Your business is going really well. At this point, you know your numbers, you've got some help, you've done the work, you've got profit putting aside, or maybe not yet, but you're working on that. But you're still working in the business. There's so many things to do on a day-to-day basis that I know myself, I need space to think. And I proved this to myself every day, but I hadn't realized it. Every day I would drive home from work, and it's a 22-minute drive home from work. I know that because I do it every single day. 7 days a week. I did so long. I actually get days off now, which is really cool. But every day I would drive home for 22 minutes to work, 22 minutes home. Now, on the way to work, I'm thinking about my day and what I've got to do. So I'm not wandering. But on the way home, I've checked out. I'm a bit tired. I've had a long day. PT days are long days. And so you're sort of really not thinking about anything. You just, a lot of the time you don't even realize how you got home, which is probably a bit dangerous. But what it did was my mind just wandered, and every day on the way home, I'd have great ideas and I'd get home energized. I'd be like, wow, I've had this really awesome idea. If I just did this would fix everything. This is so good. And then I'd go into the house and I'd start dinner and whatever else. And I'd get, there's that busy stuff you got to do, like, clean the kitchen and make dinner and have a shower and all that sort of stuff. And that little amount of busy work got me busy again. And I'd forgotten everything that I'd thought about in the car. That amazing idea was gone. Well, you get in the shower and you're just chilling out in the shower. It's freezing cold. Up here, freezing cold is like 22 degrees. But, you're in the shower, you're chilling out, and you have this great idea, which all the good ideas come in the shower or on the drive. But by the time you get out of the shower, you've forgotten it. And it just continued to happen. It just happened every single day, every single week, week in, week out. It was so frustrating. And I was like, why can't I think? And you'd say, look, that's it. I'm going to sit down at my desk and I'm going to think, and I'm not going to get up until I come up with a good idea. And you'd sit down and nothing, because I was trying to force myself to come up with good ideas. And it was always the same. It was always in the car, always in the shower. I'd have these great ideas. And the reason it boiled down to was because in the car, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not trying to think. In the shower, you're not trying to think. You're just daydreaming. And that space was where all the best ideas come from. But by simply creating a space for you to think, now, it wasn't deliberate in the car and it wasn't deliberate in the shower. But what I do now is once or twice a week, I have 1 to 2 hours where they're non-booked times. They're times when I don't have anything booked. I don't have anything planned. They're just times for me to sit and chill. I might sit and play with the Rubik's Cube or watch a movie or watch some YouTube videos or whatever. Some idle learning, but it's not planned time. And it just allows my brain to wander. And when my brain wanders, like yours does, we come up with the best ideas. Those problems that we couldn't solve become all of a sudden solvable Because when you're on the path from point A to point B, you're so focused on all the things you need to do along the way that your brain is full and it's only solely focused on point B, the place where you're going or the thing you're trying to achieve. It's like when you go for a hike, if you're so focused on walking up that big steep hill and just getting to the top, you don't see anything beside you. But when you level out to that flat ground and it's nice and easy and you're calm and you can breathe again, you start to look around and wonder. And your brain starts to see all the things around you and all the extra things off to the side. So when you're working really, really hard on achieving point A to point B, all you can see is point A and point B and the things in between. But when you stop working so hard on getting to point B and you even eliminate point B and just wander, your brain starts to look left and right and you see all these other possibilities that you just didn't see before. And by creating that space to think, you'll be surprised how many solutions you'll actually come up with. All of my best ideas have come during a daydream. But by creating space to actually dream and think and just relax, all of those ideas coalesce and they just appear. And there's no more magic than that. It's no science. It's not a complex thing. There's nothing special you need to do about it. Just create space. If you're aware of the problem and you create space to think about it, you might not even solve that problem. You might solve a problem you'd forgotten about, but you'll solve something because you'll remember something. Your brain will just wander. Now, it won't happen like magic every time. What I've found is I have to have a routine time when I can do this. By creating space each week where I can think, everything gets done. For you, it might be working from home. It might be going home like an hour early. If you've got kids, maybe don't go home. Go to the pub, have a beer, chill, it's fine. But create space where you're by yourself and you can just stare out the window and think about nothing. I believe it was Warren Buffett that had the concept that 50% of his time should be thinking about nothing. 50% of his time should be available to simply do nothing. Not because he wanted to relax or goof off or procrastinate, but he just wanted time for his brain to think. And I think you'll find that most successful people have that in common. They have this time to think of solutions. Think of new solutions to problems they didn't even know existed yet. But if you can create some space to think for yourself, you'll be surprised at what pops up. So guys, that's it. Create some space, ask for help, do the work, and know your numbers. Know your numbers, guys. And last of all, make profit a habit, yeah? Put some money aside for the business to be successful so you can be successful. So, look guys, these are what I call like they're not even the only 5 things, but for me, they've been crucial to my success and my business, my growth, my scalability. So whatever you do, if you just take 3 of these and give them a go, you'll be surprised at how much different they'll make. If you do nothing else, just try making space for yourself to think. You'll be surprised. The other things might pop into your head anyway, but give them a go, see what happens. Hopefully it helps you out, guys. If you've got any questions, as always, pop them in the comments below. You can always shoot us an email. And if you haven't done so yet, guys, jump into the Facebook group, Simplified Fitness Business. We put content up there every week. Hopefully something in there will help you out. If not, feel free to ask for something. If you've got any questions, I'd love to hear them. Apart from that, guys, have a fantastic week and we'll see you real soon.